Hi, everybody. Welcome to our episode of Weekly Reads. My name is Devon. I'm a librarian at the Worcester Public Library. And of course, I'm joined by my co-host and co-worker, Joy. How are you doing today, Joy?
I'm doing just fine. It's a beautiful day.
It's a little warm for me, but that's why I'm in the air conditioning.
I knew it would be.
So if you're new to our weekly reads, Joy and I are going to be talking about a lot of materials that you can get online through your OverDrive or Libby app. You can also use OverDrive in your browser or on your desktop or laptop. If you're not sure how to use OverDrive or Libby, just call the library and we can help. And if you didn't hear, we're also doing curbside pickup now. So there is one title on our list today that is print only. So if you're interested, just call the library or order it online and you can come pick it up whenever you're available. So for now, I'm going to switch screens so that you can see the awesome things Joy and I have lined up for you this week. Okay, so this is what we have. As usual, I'm going to focus on the fiction, and Joy will talk about the nonfiction, and we have our coming soon title. My first choice is an historical fiction. It's called The Operator by Gretchen Berg, and it came out recently, just in March of this year. It's set in 1952, and it's being called a surprising and moving debut novel. Catherine Stockett, who wrote The Help, said the book is irresistible. She really just raved about this book. So I imagine if you liked The Help, you'll like this book as well. In the book, nobody knows the people of Worcester, spelled W-O-O-S-T-E-R, the people of Worcester, Ohio, better than switchboard operator Vivian. She calls it intuition, but her daughter calls it eavesdropping. Vivian and the other women who work at Bell aren't supposed to listen to conversations, but they do, and they have opinions on what they hear. Vivian knows Mrs. Butler's daughter still hasn't thanked her mom for a handmade quilt, and that Ginny refused another invitation to go to the A&W with Clyde. But then, one night, Vivian listens to a call between that snob Betty and somebody whose voice she can't quite place. And she hears something shocking. Betty's mystery friend has news that, if true, will shatter Vivian's life. And so Vivian decides to get to the bottom of the rumor. Booklist said the book captures the plucky spirit of a telephone operator, the charm of a Midwest small town, and the secrets that threaten to change both. Fans of Fanny Flagg will soak up the small town flavor. So if you like Fanny Flagg, if you like Catherine Stockett, if you're looking for a little bit of a light read, it's not all light, but a little bit light, this would be a good choice for you this summer. And here is Joy's book.
Well, what can I say about The Splendid and the Vile by the great Erik Larson? Except that it is, in a word, splendid. But then what would you expect from literary superstar Erik Larson, a popular historian whose many titles are routinely devoured by legions of fans, many of whom do not ordinarily read nonfiction? This is his latest, published this year. In telling this story, a sweeping account of the battle to save Britain from German invasion during World War II, Larson employs a range of techniques more commonly practiced by novelists. Strong character development, lively pacing, shifting perspectives, short chapters, cliff-hanging suspense, and even a bit of romance, all backed by mountains of research. He is a master at choosing the telling detail, the perfect anecdote, and of weaving ordinary and extraordinary events into a compelling tapestry. Larson's hero is Winston Churchill, the rotund, cigar-chomping, hard-drinking, hard-headed, endlessly energetic prime minister, determined to save his beloved country from the Nazi menace by increasing the manufacture of armaments, making impassioned speeches, and most importantly, by bringing the US into the war on the side of Great Britain. Churchill's wife Clementine, daughter Mary, various cabinet members, his beloved cat Nelson, and many others play supporting roles. So there is much here that is splendid. But what about the vile? There is no escaping the fact that this is a book about war and those who make war. The splendid and the vile is full of the blood, sweat, and tears that Churchill promised his people. But it also speaks to the stubborn courage of a beleaguered nation headed by an irreplaceable leader. Time and again, Nazi officials expressed astonishment at Britain's refusal to capitulate despite relentless bombing, and they blamed Churchill. The idea that one man, however powerful, can determine the course of history has, for good reason, fallen out of favor. Still, I can't help but wonder what would have happened if someone else had served as prime minister during those critical years, someone less intelligent, less committed, less articulate, less unwilling to compromise. Good thing we don't need to find out. Oh, and did I mention that Churchill loved his cat?
If Churchill likes cats, then I like Churchill.
Me too.
All right, and here's another fiction choice. So our summer reading theme this year has to do with fantasy, fairy tales, mythology. So I'm going to feature at least one of those sorts of books every week for the summer. And for this week, it is The Sorcerer to the Crown, which is the first book in the Sorcerer Royale series by Zhen Shou. This one came out in 2015. And right now I believe there are 2 books in the series, but this one is the first, and it was her debut. So when it came out, they said it was a sparkling debut where magic and mayhem clashed with the British elite. In the book, the Royal Society of Unnatural Philosophers, once one of the most respected organizations in all of England, maintains magic in His Majesty's lands. Lately, the society has fallen into disgrace, naming a freed slave who doesn't even have a familiar as their sorcerer royal, and they're letting England's stores of magic bleed dry. But at least the society hasn't stooped so low as to allow women to practice what is obviously a man's profession. At his wit's end, Zacharias, the sorcerer royal, ventures to the border of fairyland to discover why England's magical stocks are drying up. But when his adventure brings him in contact with a woman with an immense and powerful gift, he starts down a path that will alter the nature of sorcery in Britain and the world. The coworker who recommended this book said it is a whimsical mix of fantasy and Regency romance. It tackles serious themes like racism and sexism, but still manages to stay lighthearted. Kirkus said that the book, set in an alternate magical England during the Napoleonic Wars, is both a comedy of manners and a sharp comment on racism and misogyny in the fantasy genre. It's an upper crust comedy mixed with magical thrills, social consciousness, and a hint of political intrigue. So this sounds like one of those fantasy novels that has something for everybody. It's got romance, it's got intrigue, it's got social consciousness. So if you're looking for a new series to dig into, this one might be a good choice for you. And here's another one for Joy.
I think I'd like everything about it except for the romance.
Romance. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. Well, my next choice is The Last Voyage of the Andrea Doria by Greg King and Penny Wilson, who as a duo have written several well-regarded works of popular nonfiction. This one just came out, so it may eventually be on OverDrive or Libby or Hoopla. On July 16, 1956, when over 1,500 passengers boarded the Italian liner Andrea Doria, some were carrying copies of Walter Lord's Night to Remember, a blockbuster account of the sinking of the Titanic, which had happened 44 years before. If it occurred to any of them that this might not be the best reading material for a potentially dangerous voyage, they probably dismissed their misgivings. Nobody anticipated danger. The Doria was equipped with the latest technology. There were more than enough lifeboats to go around, and they were unlikely to encounter any icebergs bobbing along on the balmy southern route to New York in midsummer. So smooth sailing, full speed ahead. But if all had gone exactly as planned, there would be no reason for King and Wilson to have written this book and no reason for you to read it. On July 26th, as she was nearing the end of her journey, the Doria collided with a Swedish ship and after 11 agonizing hours sank off the coast of Nantucket in full view of the media hovering in helicopters overhead and signaling, some said, the end of the era of the great ocean liners. The Andrea Doria was a source of great pride to the citizens of Genoa who built her, and a symbol of the Italian resurgence after the Second World War. Every element of her interior, from wall hangings to dishes, had been designed by Italian artisans. Glamorous she may have been, but she was no Titanic. She was not as opulent, her guest list not as illustrious, and the details of her demise were not as dramatic. Spoiler alert, all but 45 of her passengers eventually got off safely. The captain did not go down with the ship, and the band did not play on till the bitter end. Still, the sinking of the Andrea Doria was harrowing enough for all of her passengers, not to mention those who did not survive. King and Wilson do a masterful job in relating the stories of the individuals and families who made that fateful voyage, movie stars and immigrants alike. The history of the Andrea Doria does not end with her sinking, however. Accessible as she is just off the New England coast, the Doria has drawn hundreds of divers searching for treasure among her crumbling ruins. Almost 20 of them have died in the attempt, making her, as deep-sea divers have said, the Everest of sunken ships. But if you want to experience the perils of the sea without the risk, stay home, stay safe, and read The Last Voyage of the Andrea Doria.
I hadn't heard of that ship before. That sounds like an interesting story.
It really is.
Okay, everyone, now we have our coming soon title. And this week it's a thriller, The Last Flight. So this one is not showing in our catalog yet, but I have it on good authority that it is being purchased. So keep an eye on our catalog, also on OverDrive and Libby. It's not coming out until Tuesday, June 3rd. And a little bit about the book, the main character is Claire. She has a perfect life. She's married to the scion of a political dynasty, and she has an elegant Manhattan townhouse and a staff of 10. But behind closed doors, her husband has a temper as bright as his political career. He uses his staff to track Claire, making sure she's living up to his standards. But what he doesn't know is that Claire has a plan to vanish. A chance meeting in an airport brings her together with a woman whose circumstances are equally dire. Together, they make a decision to switch tickets, Claire taking Eva's flight to Oakland and Eva traveling to Puerto Rico as Claire. They believe the swap will give them the chance they need to begin anew somewhere else. But then, the flight to Puerto Rico goes down. Cut off, without options, and with the news of her death about to explode in the media, Claire assumes Eva's identity. This book got a lot of great reviews, including starred reviews. Publishers Weekly said, "The moral dilemmas faced by Clark's realistic characters lend weight to this pulse-pounding tale of suspense." So it sounds suspenseful. I think the premise is really interesting. So keep your eyeballs peeled. This book's coming out on June 23rd. And that brings us to the end of our weekly reads episode. Don't forget that if there's something you'd like a recommendation for, a genre or topic, you can just put it in the comments below and Joy and I will see what we can do for you. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching and we hope to see you again next week. Bye.
See you later, fellow readers.